All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this group session about living your best second house life. So, let's explore what the second house is a little bit before we really dive into how we can develop a better relationship with it. Um, First, I want to say I found it really interesting. I made a poll in the group about like which house you most want to improve in your life. And I thought for sure second house would be what most people would say. Because I mean, who doesn't want more money, right? Like to me, it seemed like that would be like a pretty obvious thing. And then obviously a lot of people are going to be like, what I really need in my life right now is a good relationship, and I care about that more than I care about money. And I totally get that. Um, so I figured like those would be the two main things. I um, found it interesting that second house was not one of the top choices. The reason that I'm doing this week is because when I was talking to the people in the 10th house group last week about what it is they want out of the second or out of their 10th house, and 10th house was the top answer in the poll, what I found was that what most of them really needed was a stronger relationship with their second house in order to have the type of relationship that they want with their 10th house. And also, a lot of what they wanted seemed like it was actually just trying to get to that good place with their second house. And they just kind of figured they needed to go through their like sixth house and 10th house in order to get there. And what I would like to do now is kind of explore why that might be. So, the second house is something that's developed very, 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 very early in our lives when we're young and we get things that we want, get things that we need, see things we want and don't get them, realize that we enjoy certain types of things, have our basic needs met, and just spend time around our parents and just kind of absorb, like through osmosis, kind of like absorb their approach and beliefs to money and having the things that they want and need in their lives. All of this starts to form our second house. And the types of things that determine what kind of relationship you have with your second house are things like when you asked for something, were you usually told that you can't have it, either because there wasn't enough money for it, because it's something that you shouldn't want, something silly? Um, were you told that you needed to earn it, like save up your allowance, you can get it, but you're going to have to buy it yourself, you're going to have to work for it? Um, were you scolded for even wanting it to begin with? Were you just given it? Um, were you expected to share your things? Like if there was something another kid wanted to play with and you didn't want to share, were you scolded for that and made to share every single time, no matter what it was? Um, all of these types of things are the foundation of our second house, and it just continues to develop as we get older. So, the second house is kind of interesting because in a way it seems like it's not super related, like the different things that it represents. So it's like your personal finances, okay, and also your sense of self-worth. What? And also your values, the things that you like and don't like. Okay. But if you think about it in terms of this foundation when you're very, very young, and how it how the way your needs and desires are treated, and whether you're allowed to like ever just enjoy things and like be in a beautiful surrounding and stuff like that, it kind of starts to make sense. Like a kid who is given everything that she wants is going to think that she gets those things because she deserves them. Like, that's just how life is. And a kid who never or almost never gets things that she wants is going to think that she essentially just doesn't deserve those things. That's just not how life works. And she's going to develop a, this belief that'll, unless she addresses it, follows her through life, that she's just not allowed to have things she wants, that she doesn't deserve them. And that's where the low self-worth comes from when it comes to an unhealthy second house. And these are patterns that I have experienced quite a bit myself. I grew up in poverty, and my parents dealt with financial crises. And throughout my adult life, I've had a lot of financial crises myself. And I had a couple people complain to me, an ex and my brother both complained to me that it was hard to buy gifts for me. And I said, what? I like all sorts of things. And my brother's like, really? Like what? And I'm like, he's like, yeah, see, it's hard to buy you things. And it took a lot for me to start to connect with what I actually wanted, because I had this belief so deep that I can't get things that I want, that I never even thought about the types of things I liked or wanted, because why would I? I can't have them anyway. It's just torturing myself, right? So it can be a difficult thing to ask for what you want, and to even know what you want, if this is not something that you have had much of in your life. And there are ways to start to develop that and build it up. One of the things that I did in the very beginning that worked just so wonderfully for me was I started buying myself frivolous little gifts. And it was part of this this thing I was doing. I had this realization that a lot of the things that I wanted from other people were things I could actually just give myself. And it was this big epiphany for me. And if I was kind of bummed out because my boyfriend wasn't spending enough time with me, I'd be like, all right, well, I will give me plenty of attention, and I would take some me time. And I just started, I just loved it and started doing a lot of this kind of thing. And I started buying myself these frivolous little gifts just because I love me and it will make me happy, and I want me to be happy, and I'm going to take care of me. And it sounds like kind of a simple thing, and it is kind of a simple thing, but it's really deeply impactful. And if you want to have any kind of improvement in your life, you're talking about a transformation. If you want to have any kind of transformation, you're talking about your 8th house. And if you want to do anything in your 8th house, you need to make sure you balance it out with enough second house focus. It's a pretty big deal. So I would say anybody who's looking to make some kind of improvement, start taking care of yourself in second house areas as well as you can. And then it'll just kind of flow from there. So the reason that I asked people to grab a pencil and paper is 2 reasons. Number one, because as you're watching this, if you get this notion oh, part of me is having this feeling about this thing, part of me is worried that if I am doing better in terms of, my material possessions and my money, it's going to be a problem in this area, or I can't do better because of this thing, any limiting beliefs that you find yourself thinking. Write that down. It's different parts of you letting you know that there are these concerns that need to be addressed, and you'll be able to use that later to talk to these different parts of you and find out what's going on, and just give them all sorts of love and support and nurturing. So the other reason that I got it, or asked you to get it, is because I want to talk a little bit about money in particular. And it seems like a lot of people don't think it's okay to just say, I want more money. I want a lot of money. Give me the money. I want money. And there are a lot of reasons for that, like religions throughout history, and this is in our epigenetics, we physically carry this around with us. a lot of religions throughout history have told us that it's bad for us to want a lot of things for ourselves, and we should, if we have, or not even if we have it, regardless of whether or not we have it, we should be giving that to the church. Um, and that's a burden that gets passed down through generations until it gets cleared. And some of us got messages from our family, from our school, that we shouldn't be selfish, that it's not okay to want things for ourselves. And the second house is all about having these things and receiving these things. Like, we, in the other two earth houses, the sixth and the 10th, that's where we are like earning these things or contributing to society. And yes, there's a strong relationship with the second house, obviously, but the second house in and of itself is not strictly like is not related to like how we get these things. It's all about just having them and receiving them. So a healthy second house means being open to receiving, whether it's from your own efforts or just life bringing you gifts. And having said that, what I would like everyone to do is think about what it would be like to have a lot more money than you have right now, and what you think that would do for you. So, like, all of your hopes, fears, wishes, all of your thoughts about having a lot more money. And it doesn't matter if they contradict each other, they probably will. But like, everything you can think of related to what it would be like to have a lot more, just kind of make a list. You can always add to this later. There was something loud outside. I don't know if it came through through the Zoom meeting, but what I would like to do is just like glance at your list and see if there are any themes on it. And if there's anybody that's willing to speak up and share like something that they've noticed that different items on their list, like a lot of them have in common, that would be amazing. I can share mine if nobody else wants to.
I'm willing to share maybe after you, just so I can.
Sure. So the two things that I found were very prevalent on my list, and I actually went back and like circled some of them with one color pen and some of them with another. Um, One of the things that I repeated throughout the list is that I didn't want to have worry or stress or anxiety or like be in a really uncomfortable situation, because of issues with money. I wanted to relieve the feeling of insecurity. And the other thing was that I wanted to feel good. So the words I circled were cozy and comfortable, peace, enjoy, peace, enrich, abundant, peace, living my truth, appreciate, wonderful. So I was looking to relieve stress and have a feeling of security. And I was looking to create a feeling of just like comfort and, just a lovely, pleasant feeling and freedom. So, what I realized from my list is that it was essentially feelings that I was looking for at the end of the day. And that the things that I thought would bring me that, if you look at people who have a lot of money, a lot of them, most of them, I would say, actually don't have that peace and, still have a lot of worries about money. And in fact, if somebody has a lot of money and they don't address some of these underlying concerns and some unhealthy behavioral patterns that they might have, it just ends up increasing those things for them. More money just amplifies patterns that are already there. So basically what I'm getting at is like, we all need a certain amount just to like meet our like basic security needs. And once we get beyond a certain point, like we do get more freedom of experience when we have more money, but that doesn't necessarily make us happy. What makes us happy is something that is inside of us already, and it's this feeling of abundance. And if you read what I wrote out in that article about the process, the first and most important step to get started is to focus on that feeling. Like if you picture yourself in a lifestyle that's just like amazingly exactly what you want, and you're not even worried about how you would get there, you're just like daydreaming and like imagining this luxurious lifestyle that's just your ideal, whatever that feels like, focus on that feeling and bring that feeling with you throughout your day. You can feel that now. And some things obviously make it more challenging, like if you're working a job you hate, it's kind of hard while you're hating your job to like bring that energy into it. But the more you can do that, the more it's going to change your it's like tuning a radio. If you tune in to a certain frequency, then that's what plays out of the radio. And the second house is the physical manifestation of what we're attuned to energetically when it comes to abundance and having things that we want in our lives and knowing what we want. And so the idea is that you focus on that and then just keep bringing that into your experience and whatever you're doing, like watching your hands. It's just like I like to consider it like coming in through my crown chakra, because this energy, it's like it's in me, it's around me. I can like bring in more of it. And what ends up happening when you do this is that all of a sudden you don't feel so great. You start to think like, wow, like I don't see how I could ever actually accomplish something like this. Or you start to think, but if I do that, then, this other bad thing might happen. Or, there's a lot of different concerns that can come up. And I just realized I kept talking into the next point without giving other people a chance to share what some of the themes that came up on their lists were. So if you'd like to share now, feel free.
Can I go? Oh, sorry.
Who was it?
Sonia.
Oh, that's me. Mine actually, you said like the ones that I was like, oh, that was on my list. One was, yeah, freedom of time. And then one was just more opportunities to make money doing things that I enjoy. So that's something I'm like really working on a lot right now. I'm like, how can I make money doing something I like, not just making money just to make money. And then it's all comes back to what you were saying, just having that peace and at the end of the day.
Yeah, just this feeling of abundance, like if there's something I want or need, it's available to me, and you know, it's just all flowing to me, whatever I need. Thank you. Valentina?
Okay. For me, well, I have Mars in my second house, and I always had this situation with people who always wants to take care of me, like give me money, and I had the belief that I can't be self-reliant, like that I can't make money because I always somebody's coming like to provide that for me. But it's not even that, it's just there is a power struggle. So for me, if I have to picture myself with money, it would be me giving the money back or giving the money to others. That for me will be like a very, it will make me feel like it's not only powerful, but like more independent, of course, freedom or free, and more, my self-worth will be much higher. So, and I know there is like you were saying, that the second house and the eighth house is there, this connection for me with my Mars, and also my Mars is conjunct, my Mars is 26 degrees. It is conjunct to my moon and Pluto, which they're conjunct in my third house in Scorpio. So for me, there is this connection with Scorpio and Mars, and yes.
I see. So for you, like Mars very much values independence. So for you, being financially independent would be a wonderful, like it would empower your Mars.
Yes, very much.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Would anybody else like to share before we move on to the next thing? Rada?
I noticed with mine, and especially like after like comparing it to yours, is that I framed a lot of stuff sort of like in a negative sense, not like what is a sense of like what it's not. Like it's actually, I don't know, I have a hard time actually picturing having a lot of money in like reality. Like if I'm picturing like, you know, a future life where I like accomplish stuff, it's I don't know, it's just related to like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of it's more related to like my skill and stuff. But if I think about the money itself, it's like I like the words I find is like, you know, paying off debt, not being a burden, like not needing to be as worried, and you know, and then like there's like only like one point where it's like, oh, I could like take more lessons and stuff. For the most part, but for most part, it's like not being as like worried or stressed about things. And like, I don't know, I guess it's like kind of like, I mean, not being worried is a positive thing, but like, I'm not sure how to bring it to an actual positive point. I feel like it's related to like me having Saturn in my second house, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Saturn is actually kind of a lovely planet, and I'm like just old enough now to start realizing this, because when you're young, it's like Saturn's like that principal in elementary school that you didn't like and was always like, you know, busting your chops for something. Like this idea of Saturn is like this, you know, authority figure that just like punishes you and you get all these hard lessons. Like that's how it is when you're younger. But then once you're older, the rewards start showing up, and Saturn actually gives us an opportunity through all these challenges to build a really strong foundation for success later in life, and to really thrive in that area with the wisdom that we have so harshly acquired while we were younger.
Yeah, I haven't had my Saturn return yet or anything, so maybe that'll change things. Though right now it's like almost conjunct my ascendant, like that whole Saturn Pluto conjunction is like right on top of my ascendant. It's getting there. My Saturn is at 0 degrees Aries, stationary direct, and I still haven't figured out how that's significant, but it definitely seems significant.
Well, in my particular case, I didn't start seeing my Saturn pay off for me until I was like 38. So I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, but in my case, it took longer than just my first Saturn return. I think in my first Saturn return, I actually learned a bunch of false limitations and compromised on some really important things. However, I have Saturn opposite my Venus, Mars, and Sun. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah. For me, it's trying to my Sun and Pluto.
Okay, so that's nice. Alyssa, I saw you motion earlier. Would you like to share too? I can't hear you.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay.
Actually, mine was pretty similar, like with bits and pieces of what everybody said. Definitely the one that stood out to me was just basically like less anxiety for stuff, everything. One of the ones I said also that really bothers me is that I care about so many things and I can't contribute to them a lot because I don't have a lot of money. And then also just being able to pay or provide for my family without being like, no, we can't, we're going to go without this for a little while because I got to do this, or, just having like stable home life. And then also to be able to travel more, basically, because I'm kind of like, I love traveling and I'm just kind of stuck right now.
Yeah, I hear that. I really relate to all of that. And it helped me to, so I would consider myself to have financial freedom at this point. And what it took for me to stop worrying about money was a crisis, actually. I had a head injury, and after my head injury, I couldn't work for a little while. I was trying and I was making some money, but it was bad. And I was not able to pay my bills, and like all my like retirement savings and all that went away. And I was in this position where I needed to just be willing to accept. And I've always been someone who was much, much more focused on what I could give than what I was willing to allow myself to receive. And it was really hard for me at first. And I had to make peace with being able to receive without having anything to offer in exchange, even though I had always offered a lot without expecting anything back. So what ended up happening was I ended up moving all of my belongings into a storage unit and couch surfing for a while. Like my lease was up on my house where I was living, and I didn't have enough money to move into a new place, and I didn't have enough money to stay there either. And like my head injury was starting to heal enough at that point that I could do something, but I didn't have a place to live. So I started just traveling around, and it was a really valuable time in my life, and I learned absolutely invaluable things. And one of the things that I learned during this period of time is that no matter how hard you're working, it's not actually you that's giving you money. like if life doesn't cooperate, no matter what you do, you're not going to get money. And that was a hard lesson for me. And I also learned that even when I couldn't do anything or didn't do anything, money could just come to me. That it's not directly related to my efforts and actions necessarily. And a lot of times it is, but it's not necessarily. And I basically came to this point of spiritual surrender with my finances, where I said, okay, well, if there's something that I really need, life will provide it. And if I don't have it, it means I don't really need it. And right now that's a place to live. So I actually, I stayed in like like 9 or 10 different places in 10 years. And I started doing this process that I'm talking about towards the end. And I ended up living somewhere that was more comfortable than anywhere else I ever lived within a few months after starting to use this process that I'm talking about. And I've upgraded again since. So it's been a really wild experience for me. And what I've learned from it is that even when the situation is extremely unstable, extremely uncertain, and actually really scary looking, I can have a sense of security that that's not something that's dependent on outer circumstances. And times in my life when I've actually made a lot of money, I had a lot of financial stress at that time too, because it's what I knew how to do. It's just how I had always lived. And like I said earlier, there are a lot of very wealthy people that worry about money constantly. So that feeling of stress about money, it's not inherently tied to how much you have. I mean, like, yeah, it's stressful if you don't know where rent's going to come from, but if you can learn how to flow with it, it doesn't necessarily have to be. So I don't stress about money a whole lot anymore. And I'm more financially comfortable than I've probably ever been. And I also have just a feeling of ease and still this knowing that if there's something that I really need, then life will provide it for me. And if I don't have food, then it means I don't really need it right now. And if I die of starvation, it means it was just my time. So like I ended up with a very, very, very deep piece about how the universe provides for me. And this isn't, this is more of a like 9th house, 12th house kind of a thing more than a second house thing, because second house is not that flowy or deep. Like second house, just like, you know, I want what I want. But radical acceptance of things the way they are and like, you know, spiritual surrender, like these are more 12th house things, and it can really go a long ways to getting you into a healthy second house because of the way things move from the 12th house to that rebirth in the first house, that fresh start and that spark of life. And then from there, it gets you really firmly into the second house. So basically that's part of the journey that I've had. And the more I'm like doing these, the more I'm realizing that the houses are a lot more interconnected than I was thinking initially. I mean, obviously they are, but they're very, very interconnected. And what I'd like to do now is, oh, somebody typed a message into the chat. He said, don't know if y'all will see this, but I'm going to just jump in on chat here. I have Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury in my second. I feel a lot of quid pro quo type thing. If somebody gives me something, I have to return the favor to the point where it's unhealthy. I also deeply feel the need and desire to feel stress-free from bills or debts, etc., because it was something growing up I saw struggles with and even had experienced some in life as well. So it's kind of a constant appearing thing. My hubby says I always am trying to help others when we can't or pack on more things than we can handle. Don't know if that relates to second or not. I'm new to this birth chart stuff. Thank you for sharing that. So some of that is certainly second house stuff, and some of it relates more to other houses. And I've been there, like all of that resonates. And so having Jupiter and Venus in the second house, like I could see how that would, like Jupiter is this like expansive feeling and can lend a sense of optimism to an area, and Venus has this like sense of loveliness and I could see that like being related to wanting to give. So it sounds like a lot of us have had fairly similar experiences, and I kind of want to talk about like things that I've discovered different parts of me have thought or felt. And one of the main ones is wanting to give to other people and to be in a position to do that. And also feeling like it's not okay for me to have more than other people have. Like if somebody else in the world is suffering and like needs something and I have something, like there's some kind of like inherent like not okayness about that. And before I get into how I resolved that within myself, and I think this is a pretty common concern that a lot of people have on some level, you know, I find that the types of concerns people have about a certain subject are pretty universal. And some people feel them more consciously and closer to the surface than other people do. But most people carry that around inside them somewhere. So like when one person is sharing something or struggling with something, like usually like most of the people, unless they're like really disconnected from it, can get some benefit out of that as well, which is one of the reasons why I think group sessions are really valuable, because we can learn from and relate to each other. I also find that the group energy itself is something that's amazing and can be very supportive and healing and beneficial. So there's a tool that I have learned about called IFS. It stands for Internal Family Systems. And basically the idea is that like if you've ever heard the term dissociative identity disorder or like multiple personalities, basically like many psychological conditions, it's basically just an extreme version of something that we all experience. And most of us aren't super aware of it, but we know it on some level. Like it, you know, if you say to someone like, part of me is feeling angry about this, part of me is sad about it, and part of me just wants to like move on and like not even think about it anymore. People get that. They know, like, and it's because we all have different parts of us. And what IFS does is gives us a model for how to work with those parts, and like why those parts are, like explore why those parts are doing what they're doing, and give us the opportunity to see if we can it's called unburden some of these parts that are carrying burdens from, you know, usually from when we were very young, but we can pick them up throughout life. And so basically what happens is like I could use an example. So let's say that there was an incident where I really, really, really wanted a certain Christmas present when I was a little kid, and I did not end up getting that present. And I was so disappointed and sad that part of me just decided that I just wasn't going to want stuff anymore, because it was just so disappointing if I didn't get it. I might forget about that, but continue with my life still, like with part of me believing that it's better to just not want anything. And with IFS, if I am able to talk with that part and say, you know, why do you believe that it's a bad idea to want things? Like why, like what happened? What's going on? And then this part tells me this story. Well, when I was 5 years old, I really wanted this Barbie dollhouse, and I wanted it so, so bad. And I was so excited about it. And then I didn't get it. And I was just devastated. And I could never go through that again. So I decided, you know, I'm going to protect, you know, you essentially from ever having that experience by just like refusing to acknowledge any desires for myself. And then I can interact with this part and express compassion and gratitude. Thank you for working all these years so hard to protect me. I really appreciate that. And, do you know how old I am now? I'm 39. And, if I really want a Barbie dollhouse, I don't have to wait for it for Christmas. I could go get it myself. And it's okay to want stuff. Like, you're safe now and I'm going to take care of you. And if there's something that I, really want, there's, a lot of times there's a way to get those things now. So basically what ends up happening when we have these interactions with ourselves is that a lot of times they're willing to just stop doing that. You can say like, have you, ever wanted to do something else? Like, what if you didn't have to do this? What if you didn't have to go around policing all these other parts of me that do want things to make sure that, nobody like actually thinks they're getting anything? What if you didn't have to be responsible for managing my desires and hopes? Like, what if you could just do something else instead? What would you want to do? And then, we might say, well, I mean, I always thought it would be kind of nice to, just ride a bike, just go for a bike ride. That sounds nice. And I say, well, tell you what, you don't need to do that anymore. I'm an adult and I can manage my expectations about like what's really realistic. You don't need to worry about that anymore. So why don't I take care of that? And why don't we just go for a bike ride? And then I go for a bike ride. And it's this incredibly simple yet powerfully healing thing that has changed my life really dramatically and a lot of other people's lives too. So you can find more information about how to use IFS yourself on YouTube. There's a 4-part training series. If you just Google IFS Part 1, there's like a blue screen with, I think, white lettering on it. And it's a 4-part training series that you can just watch for free. There are also all sorts of really great books out there about IFS. But what we can do is talk a little bit and see if you can just describe your approach, whatever's coming up for you around this subject. And we can write, or you can write down, oh, okay. If I hear like there's a part that sounds like it's trying to do this and, this sounds like it might be another part, then I'll let you know and you can kind of take notes so you can go back and, see what you can do to nurture and show compassion and care for these different parts of yourself. Would anybody like to share at this point? Or if you'd like, I can give you some, I said I was going to go back to the thing about like donating money. So when I was trying to think about like what it would be like to have like a lot more money than I have right now. Like, what if my income was 10 times what it is now? Like, what would that be like? There was this part of me that was feeling, there was some resistance that was coming up related to like, is it really okay for me to have that much when there are so many people that are living in really, bad places financially? Like, is it okay for me to have this much when others have so little? And that is a really common, really big, and really good question. And essentially, what it comes down to in my case is, first of all, abundance is essentially about knowing how to flow with life, aligning your inner world and your outer world, and just being open to both receiving and giving. And when you're living in that alignment, it gives you the opportunity to yes, get a lot of money, but it's not like you have to just sit on all of it. Like, if you've got a lot of money coming in and it feels good to serve life by like finding worthy causes to donate to. And that's something that you can really get behind, then set a donation goal. Like, I would like to donate $1 million this year. That is my goal. And it's okay to do that. And money is essentially energy. And if you can allow it to come into your experience, then you're free to just direct it right back out if you'd like to. So that's not a necessity, obviously, and different people have different lifestyles and different lifestyle desires. But the more money is available to you, the more freedom you have to have nice things for yourself and to do nice things for other people as well. So I can share some of the other concerns that my parts have brought up and how they've been resolved if you'd like, or if there's anybody else who would like to share what different parts of them are coming up with. I would encourage you, if you're feeling any resistance, not to push through it, because what happens sometimes is there are parts of us that get kind of like repressed by other parts. And in IFS, we call those parts exiles. So the exiles are the ones that either have behaviors that are unhealthy for us or are carrying like some really heavy burdens of pain that would be really unpleasant to experience. And then other parts will try to keep exiles in exile by either being a firefighter, which is something like, I don't feel so great, I'm gonna eat some cake, or I'm gonna go shopping, I'm gonna gamble, I'm going to have sex, I'm going to drink, I'm going, like any kind of behavior that's meant to get us to not feel whatever it is that's coming up, or to keep another part repressed, essentially. And then there's another type of part that's called managers, and the managers are there to kind of repress the firefighters in a large extent. So like, part of me knows that it's not good for me to eat cake every time I get sad. So a part that tries to control what I eat might be a manager, or a part that tries to control what I spend might be a manager. So what we don't want to do is bypass any of the managers or firefighters and go right for an exile, because what will happen is that those other parts will start doing their job even more strongly and issues that maybe weren't so bad before all of a sudden get really bad. So it's important not to go to exiles unless like the other parts within our like inner systems are okay with that. So basically, before sharing something, ask inside, is there a part that like wants to come forward with anything? And is there any part that does not think this is a good idea? And, if there's a part that's not okay with it, say, okay, and just honor that. And yeah, so would anybody like to share anything at this point? Pam.
Hi, I think it's relevant. First of all, I'm really glad to be with you all today. It was a pretty synchronicitous, so I'm glad. I found my way here.
Awesome. But, glad to have you.
Speaking of the different parts of myself, second of all, I guess I resonate with a lot of things that everybody's saying. But there is a really interesting piece that came out as I was making the list, and so one of the a part of myself does say that if I did have a lot of money, I would want to donate or contribute in various ways. But there was a part of me that said, well, what if I had a lot of money and then I didn't donate? What would that say about the person that I am? And so that was a part. That was a very interesting part. And then another part comes in and says, well, that's not true, because when you are able to, you can donate. You're generous enough to donate. But there's these different competing things in there. There's this little struggle going on with this piece that says, like, well, are you going to be like a Scrooge about it? You know, are you going to be like greedy about it? Are you really going to be that person that's generous, or are you just going to sort of hang on to it and just be selfish with it? So there's like that interesting like resistance there between these different elements that was really interesting that came up.
Yes, and typically, or maybe always, I think always, when there's one part of us saying one thing, then there's another part of us saying kind of the opposite thing. And when it's strong, we experience this as inner conflict. And when it's strong inner conflict, these parts are like really going at it. And with IFS, what I do is hear out each side fully. And then usually there's a good point on both sides. Like, I've never talked to a part that didn't have a good point at, like, once you get to the actual like core of what was being said. And a lot of times it's not what it looks like right off the bat. A lot of times it ends up being something else. But what ends up happening when I like look at both sides of it is that there's usually some like happy middle ground or some solution that takes the needs of both sides into account and can answer both of them simultaneously. There's pretty much always, so far, a win-win solution. And you know, in this case, you know, part of you is maybe judging you for being selfish, like as a, you know, or fears being selfish, has judgment towards selfishness. And then, you know, another part just likes the idea of having more money from the sounds of it, potentially. So what you could do is, you know, take a little time for yourself and just kind of hear out both sides. Like, why are you worried about this? And what would happen? You know, they'll say it's because of this. Okay, well, what would happen if that happened? And, you know, really get to the core of it. And like I said, if you watch those videos, it can really, or read a book about it, it can really, really be extremely helpful in knowing how to interact with these different parts of ourselves. And I should also say, by the way, that there are IFS certified practitioners out there. Some of them are therapists, some of them aren't. I don't have any specific book recommendations because I haven't actually read any of them. All I needed was the YouTube video, and it fit in really nicely with like spiritual practices that I already had. So I haven't gotten to the point of reading any books yet. But oh, I forgot what I was saying before I saw the question about the book. That's all right. If it's important, it'll come up again. Anything else, Pam? By the way, with these parts, I find that once I start talking with a part, and you know, I'm like hearing their voice in my head, like an inner voice, right? A lot of times I just ask them, like, what do you want me to call you? And they'll actually come up with a name for themselves. I've got all sorts of different parts. I've got like my parts that are most related to my finances are, well, Renee is the part that was carrying a lot of financial trauma. And parts have parts. So Renee has parts named Yawn, Fantasia, Denver, and Mary. So like if the benefit to asking them is that when something comes up, you can say, oh, is this Renee? And, you know, you can also after you talk with part, check in again the next day and say, hey, Renee, how's it going in there? And yeah, so so Rada had asked about the book recommendations, and she said the YouTube video is good, but I was struggling with not being able to easily find sections to reference. You mean like sections of the video? Like it's hard to go back and like reread or like watch it again? Yeah. That is an understandable thing about watching a video instead of reading a book. You can't just put a bookmark in it and then go back to it whenever you want. I have I have created a bookmark of a specific point in a YouTube video before. So, I mean, that's possible, but otherwise, I don't know. I know that I've heard really great things about the book You Are the One You've Been Waiting For, and it's by the person who actually developed IFS, which like I tend to like his content the most. So his name is Richard Schwartz. And by the way, just so like everybody here is very clear about this, I am IFS, it's called IFS informed. So I know about IFS and I practice IFS myself, but I am not IFS certified. I'm not IFS trained. And I am also not a therapist. So like we can talk about like stuff you've experienced, you know, but if it's anything that's like trauma, like I saw somebody die in a car accident when I was 4, that's the kind of thing that I can't really like talk about without, you know, being a therapist. So just throwing that out there. So anyways, is there anybody else who would like to talk about their parts?
I will. Parts as in like you're saying, like the manager's exile type thing.
Yeah. So whatever's coming up for you, basically, and then we can talk about the different, you know, what might be a part.
Okay. It's funny as like I've never heard IFS before, but I always and I've been into astrology for many years, and it's funny because I always used my sun, my rising, and my moon sign as like my main, like the voices. It's so since I'm a Libra sun, Virgo rising, Scorpio moon. And so it's like these 3 things I always would like, that was my version of, I guess, of the manager exile. Like, oh, well, we just want everybody to be happy. But then it's like Scorpio's like, no, like this is not acceptable. We need to like stir shit up. And Virgo's just over here like analyzing and whatever. So, but for my second house, I have my sun, Mars, Mercury, and moon in my second house. So I remember learning and studying, someone had said that like your sun and your moon kind of represent like your mother and father. And if they're in your second house, that they'll tell you like things that you're supposed to value. And so for me, I've always had this, like for both my parents, they're immigrants. So they're always like, you need to go to school, you need to go to work. And it's like, always like, you have to make money, you have to like survive. Like, if you don't have money, you're not going to survive. Like, what are you going to do? And I just remember growing up being like, I just want to like be happy. And like, I don't want to be stressed about that. But like in the back of my mind, I still hear their voices of like, if you don't be responsible and you're not doing these things, like you're going to end up like that. Literally my mom would be like, you're going to end up under a bridge. Is that what you want? And I would just have to be like, well, if I end up under a bridge, then I end up under a bridge, Mom. And she would just get so upset with me. And so I know that I'm able to like harness that idea of like, oh, you know, like flow. But now with my Saturn return and stuff, it's like, okay, you really have to like take those responsibilities because you now are like I'm the guardian for my younger brother now because my parents aren't in the picture. So it's like, you can't really just have that, well, whatever happens, happens, you know, you have to balance those 2 things of like having that flow mind, what you're saying, but then also like actually practically doing the things you're supposed to. And I'm just like struggling with the doing the things you're supposed to, because for so long, I think I've always tried to rebel the authority, that authority thing of like, I don't want to do those things. So, but yeah, so for me, that's what comes up around like a lot of the house stuff. It's like doing the things you're supposed to be doing, like saving money and like doing the practical things. It's like, I don't want to, that doesn't sound fun to me. So, but now it's like, well, it's not about fun, you have to balance it. So right now I'm still trying to work out and find out that balance.
Sure. So what it sounds like is, by the way, I actually do find that astrology placements actually like are parts of us, but there's a lot more parts than there are placements. And some of the parts like seem like kind of a combination of multiple placements. So there's definitely some correlation, but it's not like an exact correlation.
Mhm.
But it does sound like there's a part of you that really wanted to just rebel and be your own person and just have freedom when it comes to like not having to worry about this stuff, even though you were like told constantly to worry about it. And it would be really interesting to talk to that part of you and you just really hear it out and say, like, is there anything that you want me to know? Is there anything you want to show me? And you might have like memories and, you can just express compassion for this part for having gone through that and, gratitude for protecting you from this influence that felt so oppressive and, just see what else is happening there. And then this other part that's coming in saying, okay, well, there's like actually some benefit to having money and, some stability and, like maybe there's something to this. Hearing out what that part of you has to say and, seeing if there's a way to make the two, like to bridge the two. Like you don't necessarily have to give up your freedom and do the exact things that your parents said that you should do in order to have the things that are important to you. And you also don't have to like just because they told you to do something doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for you, but you can do it because you find that it's the best thing, not because it's what they said. I've got Uranus conjunct my moon, so I get the rebelliousness, like that. I feel that pretty strongly myself, but yeah, you might find that it works really well to just fully hear out each side and say, what do you think would happen if we didn't do this? Like, what's the worst case scenario here? And just hear them out and let them know that you're here and whatever it is they're trying to do, you can take care of it. You're an adult now. And they might need to be told like sometimes parts think that you're still a little kid and you have to say, do you know how old I am? Well, it's this old and I'm capable of protecting myself now. I'm capable of taking care of myself now, and I'm going to take care of this. You don't need to do this by yourself anymore. You don't have to stop if you don't want to, but you don't have to do it. It's going to be all right. I'll be with you and I love you no matter what. That's the thing that my parts need to hear at the end of the day, usually. I love you no matter what, and I always have and I always will. Is there anybody else that would like to talk about what's coming up for them? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a Scorpio second house with Pluto, a Sagittarius Pluto. And the Pluto is actually my most aspected planet in my whole chart. And whenever I look up anything about Pluto, it's supposed to be this really destructive planet. It has all these like supernatural powers. And I'm kind of going through life thinking, I don't even know how Pluto is really playing out, even though it's supposed to be this really big thing in my chart and apparently my life. And with it being in the second house, I do kind of feel like I have been chasing stability. As I said before, I've been chasing a lot of stability and material wealth, yes. But I've kind of realized that the more and more I try to go down a path that I think I should, or that others tell me I should be doing or should be going down, the more unhappy I feel, and also the more obstacles I face. So I guess I'm just kind of trying to figure out now how to start going in the opposite, well, maybe not opposite, but a different direction, and just try to find more things that I truly enjoy just doing. I realize I don't really have many hobbies. I don't really have things that I kind of just do just for fun, or I don't really know what just makes me happy. But I know how to work. I guess I can say I know how to make money, and I also know that there are 1,000,001 ways to do that. So even though I'm kind of scared of falling into some type of financial crisis, I'm definitely not there. And I feel like I won't get there because I have this strong sense and ability of making money, but I'm still not happy. There's a part of me that's just not, I guess, experiencing life how I want to truly experience life. And I guess I'm just having some struggle with that part.
Yeah. So does it resonate if I say that there's a part of you that feels that you're not living as your authentic self?
Definitely.
That's a pretty important thing. And the thing is, the more authentic we are, the more we can come into alignment with life in this way where like our inner worlds and outer worlds combine and like align with each other, and things just kind of flow, and opportunities that like totally unexpected opportunities can present themselves, and and you know, things just kind of happen. So one of the things that I find with placements just in general is that if you have a placement somewhere, it's important to focus on the area opposite of it. So having some second house placements means that focusing on your eighth house, which is exactly what IFS is very, 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 very eighth house, can actually kind of like balance it out in such a way that you find the higher expression of both sides of it. And the interesting thing about parts, like remember earlier I was saying, like when a part is willing to stop doing whatever it was they were doing, when they're willing to release that burden, I say, what do you want to do now? And a lot of, you know, I use the example of going for a bike ride, but I find that a lot of them want to do some kind of creative thing, painting, sculpting, drawing, like writing. I think that people are naturally pretty creative and playful and have fun and have hobbies. And when these parts of us get burdened down by these experiences, and it's essentially like unprocessed trauma, but it's like a lot of times it's like small t trauma, not like trauma, but like you know, just bad experiences that we've had. When these parts take on these burdens, they're not just playing anymore. They're not, you know, having fun. So one path to that like greater authenticity could be through your eighth house, by like getting to know your inner world and interacting with these different parts of yourself. And then the reward at the end of the day is seeing these parts of you just light up and, you know, release their cares. And like some of mine, like, you know, when I check in on them, I see them like running and playing on a beach, like in my head, like, so, you know, it's not always necessarily something in the physical world that they need, but, you know, some say they just want to rest for a little while after they stop doing whatever it is they were doing. So that's one pathway to doing that. And then another thing is just to explore, just try things, you know, and hear what they have to say. But yeah, anything else?
No, I think that's really it. I kind of have been on a journey recently to trying to find myself more and find things that I truly enjoy and just kind of living in, I guess, my own truth. I'm a Libra sun, so I always want to do things with other people, blame it on the Libra. But I'm just trying to now focus more on me and not waiting around for other people to do things with me and just go out and do it. Hey, I'll find someone who's doing it too when I get there. So
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
just taking a new approach.
So a little bit of Aries to balance out that Libra then.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm a
Aries
Libra
is
rising too, so definitely tapping into that shadow side.
awesome. Sounds wonderful. I think I saw Rada raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a little experience. Because like, God, there's so many cars. Sorry. A couple of months ago, like when you shared IFS, I like watched that most of that video series that you recommended, and I realized that I actually had been sort of unconsciously like using it a little bit like years ago. Like I actually have like some old like sketches in one of my sketchbooks of like there was like this girl who's like me, like who's like in like sort of like a like armored dress with like wings that like are attached by like piercing her rib cage and stuff, and like is basically like this side of me that's like, you know, wants to like is like I have to do stuff and like be like you know, super like responsible, like even no matter how much it hurts and everything. And then like versus there was like this like little girl who just, you know, like who the like that older girl was like always like sort of mean to, like being like you just have to do stuff, and like the little girl just wanted to, you know, be happy and like, you know, not be so like exhausted and stuff. And so like then when you know, after I watched the video, I like sort of I tried to like work with them and I like drew them some more and stuff, and like it ended up being that older girl like ended up like you know, after like talking with him a while, that she like relaxed and like she just wanted to like, you know, go take a warm bath. And then what was funny, like I sort of like let her do that in my mind, and like, you know, like taking off all that armor and just like relaxing. And then like what happened that was really interesting was that then like after a little bit of that and the little girl wasn't being like bullied anymore, that she started wanting to get up and do things instead of just, you know, curling up or whatever. She like started wanting to be the one, like this sort of this like almost like switching roles a little bit, but in a healthier way. And like I still have like issues and conflicts like with those themes, but it's definitely a lot less than it was before.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful and a wonderful example of the type of unburdening that we can experience with IFS. And yeah, so the managers a lot of times get these ideas that like we have to do certain things and will push us to do it. And it sounds like you have been taking care of those parts of you beautifully. And I wonder, have you seen like some real improvement in your life? Like, has it been easier to like, you know, finish a project that you need to finish or anything like that as a result of working with them?
It's well, that's the trouble with that is that I still have like situations like outside of my control preventing me from doing that. Like I don't have I'm just kind of sleeping on the couch in like a crowded house with 5 siblings, because like, you know, my room has been given to my younger brothers, and I have a studio that's being built for me. You can maybe see it in the background there.
Yeah.
But it's not done yet. So basically I just have to wait for that to be done before I can like really do anything in my life, because I don't have a workspace. I don't really have a living space either. So it's like, it makes it hard to like meditate and like work on internal stuff very easily, because like it's hard to get privacy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So
But it's I've been able, like, since doing that, I've been able to like relax a bit easier, even if I can't do so completely. Like I still have like anxiety, but it's significantly reduced basically.
yeah, that's wonderful. I think you're going to see that really pay off for you once you're in a position to do it. And you know, what you're saying, I think, is something that's really good to bring up. So the energy is life, and the physical world is the shadow of energy. You know, like if I hold up my hand and there's a shadow of my hand, the shadow isn't the like real thing. Essentially, it's, you know, might be what I'm seeing, but the hand moving, like that's what's creating the shadow. And energy, it, you know, is the real thing, and the physical world is the shadow. However, when things start to align, sometimes it can seem like a period of destruction and instability in our lives. Like for me, when things started to align, I pretty much lost everything. Like I said, I was, you know, living in like, you know, 9 or 10 different homes in the course of 2 years. Because the stuff that like doesn't match what we're bringing into the world anymore does, like, there is some process to releasing some of that so that we can make room in our lives for new things. So there can be a little period of instability. And when it comes to this kind of depth work, slow is fast, because if we do too much too quickly, it can really destabilize our lives. Like I did a lot in a very, very short period of time. And then I ended up in a major period of transition and instability. And I don't regret any of it, because the way things are coming together now is just so lovely and beautiful. And, you know, I had a lot to shed. Like there was a lot. So I'm grateful for everything that's happened, but I think it is a good point that, you know, sometimes it seems like things aren't coming together fast enough when we start doing this kind of work, but just stick with it. You know, keep bringing in that energy of abundance, or whatever house that you're working with at the time. You know, if it's intimacy, bring in, you know, the energy of intimacy. You know, if it's friendship, bring in the energy of friendship. And you know, just kind of know that it might not just like magically appear instantaneously, and well, sometimes it sort of does, but you know, sometimes it takes a little while, because there are more pieces at play than we can imagine. And the key with all of this is that when you attune yourself to a certain like energy, then that's what's going to end up showing up as the shadow, the physical manifestation in your life. However, it's not instantaneous like it is with with the shadow in the hand. And, you know, it does take some purging and releasing in order to get there. And also, the main thing that I was going to say is that a lot of times we think we know what we really want and what's best for us, and we don't. We just think we do. And when we are focused on the feeling of having what it is that we think we want, like the feeling that we think that's going to get us, what we end up getting instead of whatever it is we think we want can actually be much better for us than the thing that we thought that we wanted. So it's important from my perspective to stay open to how it, like whatever form and whatever timing in which it might come to us, because the genius of life is going to sort that out perfectly, like much more perfectly than I ever could. So I just kind of flow with it. And in the meantime, I'm living in this delicious energy. Like, you really can't go wrong with that. Would anybody else like to talk about some of the struggles or perspectives that their parts are bringing up?
I just had I had like another question, like those ones, like it worked out well, but like I have a lot of other parts that are like a lot less cooperative. I found that, and I know that there's at least one that like I get to like the core, like sort of like the core question I find maybe, but like they just won't answer, and like it's just like it is because it is, like it's just like leading in this like circular argument of like a couple different questions where they just keep answering the same things and it doesn't get anywhere. And I'm like wondering how you deal with that.
Well, I would actually take a step back and say, is there a part of me that needs an answer to this? And then talk to that part. Because one of the qualities of self is patience. And if there's some, and like self, which, okay, so we have all these parts, but then there's our core self. And the idea is, I should have said this much earlier, I apologize. The idea is that our core self is perfectly capable of handling all these concerns that the parts might have, if we can bring that like self-consciousness into the interaction. Like if we can be present as our true self, then we can interact with these different parts of ourselves in really healing and beneficial ways. And self is compassionate, caring, creative, connected. There's 8 of these. And a few others, but also patient and, it's like a lot of love and acceptance. So sometimes I find that parts aren't willing to go further or don't want to talk to me at all. And when that happens, I just say, okay. And when the time is right, it'll come up. So I don't try to push through anything and, get things resolved. And if I find that I want to, then I realize that it's a part of me. So when we are acting from like parts of ourselves, IFS calls it being blended. We're like blended with parts. And that's like just the normal thing that most people are all the time, like just being like truly present in self consciousness is extremely rare. And, most people don't realize that it's even a thing. So if I find that I like have an agenda when I'm trying to interact with parts, then I take a step back and say, I notice that part of me really wants to get this resolved. Would this part like to talk to me about why that is? And, talk to whatever managers they're trying to make some stuff happen. Sometimes parts feel like self or seem like self, but if there's an agenda, it's not self. Would anybody else like to share? I kind of want to share.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I really liked what you just said. That was very fascinating to me about if it has an agenda, it's not the self. It's a part. So this is, I came across your Facebook post yesterday saying, hey, somebody was asking questions. You were like, check out my class tomorrow. And that's how I got into this. I watched your video from last week real quick last night. But this is the first I've heard about all of this, the internal family system. Anyway, it's fascinating. So I was thinking about my second house. I have my North Node in Sagittarius in my second.
Okay.
And I think that's all that's hanging out there. But my South Node, talking about the opposite, has Saturn on it in the 8th. In Cancer, which Saturn's in Cancer, but my South Node's in Gemini.
Okay.
So for me, I feel like a lot of times when I think about money, it's about resources. That way I can have access to more resources. That way I'm more secure. I'm safe because then I can I can buy a thing. If I need support, I can buy the support, which I guess does sound very second house with the money thing. But that feels like what you just said, which was an agenda. But it is something that really motivates me. So I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there and see if you have feedback.
Yeah. I think it's a really natural drive. And I want to say that, so like parts, if they're carrying burdens, usually they stop maturing at whatever age they started to carry that burden. And they, think that they're that age usually, but not all of them are necessarily like that. Like there are parts of all of us that are, well, most of us that are more mature, and like I said, they all have really good points. Like when I hear the underlying concern, like I've never heard one that was just ridiculous. Like they all had a good point that was important for me to consider. And it's possible that it's just a more mature part of you that has a good point. And when my approach to IFS basically has me a lot more aware of my own needs and desires, because in talking to these parts, I'm learning about those needs and desires, things that I had never considered before. So your core self that can interact with these parts doesn't have an agenda, but I mean, the parts are a part of you, like it's not like they need to, it's not like we shouldn't feel those things or think those things. It's okay to have agendas. Like we're human, it's part of who we are. So while it's okay to have the agendas, it's okay to have desires, it's okay to have fears, like it's pretty much just all okay as far as I'm concerned. Even like some of my parts, when I started talking to them, they were straight up homicidal. Like it's all okay as far as I'm concerned. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be trying to do IFS when you're blended with those parts. So self is good for leading the system. So that's another big term in IFS, being self-led. But that leadership involves taking into account the needs and desires of the rest of the system, and nurturing these different parts of us like there are beloved children, and just taking care of them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was thank you for clarifying that a little bit. I guess I wasn't sure if that was a part of me that gets fixated. It is something where there's a lot of pain attached to it. That sense of, being abandoned, being left. So there is an emotional, there's a sharp pain that goes with that. that dialogue or that narrative, the story I tell myself, that I have to give myself my own support because nobody else is out there. So it might be something that had stopped maturing at some point.
Yeah. You would probably have a really big breakthrough if you work with that part with IFS and find a lot more lightness and freedom and just like ease in your experience. But yeah, so my south node is in my first house conjunct my ascendant, so that like independence, that drive for independence and like don't count on other people, like I get that. Like I really get that. And I guess like it feels kind of right to, like, if I were talking to my own system about this, it would probably eventually get to this point where we're talking about how it's all life, you know, like we're all manifestations of life itself, and there isn't actually any like real separation between inner and outer, and life meets all our needs, and sometimes it comes from the life within us, like coming up and going out, and sometimes it comes from the life around us coming to us and bringing stuff to us, and just being present with the flow of things and aware of what's happening inside us when life is coming up inside us, and open to what's coming to us without necessarily expecting it to like have to happen in a certain way, can really be a very freeing thing, you know? So like, you know, sometimes we'll get stuff from other people and sometimes we'll do it for ourselves, but either way it's life, and life will take care of you. My system likes to hear that kind of thing. Is there anybody else that would like to share right now? Alyssa.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. I didn't really have
You're actually
struggling-
like slightly quiet. If there's any way you can like get a little closer to your microphone or something, that would be cool.
My son uses this sometimes and he has the same problem. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So I was kind of struggling of what to kind of say about this. I don't know. The reason I joined it is because I definitely have had problems with money in my life and then also my self-worth and everything. But at the same time, when you were asking those questions in the beginning, I was like, well, I don't really, I kind of wrote it down. Give me a second.
Sure.
Like, I don't really remember, like, I mean, I have like siblings and stuff, but I only really had one growing up that was like close to my age, but I didn't really have to share a lot of stuff with him. I didn't really have to, like, I got most of the stuff I wanted and everything, so I'm not really sure where that's coming from and everything else. So I'm wondering, like, if it's a different part of my chart, and then also that Pisces is my second house cusp, and I really don't know how that's, I can kind of see it, I guess, working out in my life, but I'm not really sure.
Well, Pisces is the most like yin and fluid of all of the signs. So you'll probably be the kind mostly to just like go with the flow with whatever's happening in your financial situation, and bringing some Virgo discernment in to like balance out that Pisces like kind of flowiness, or even like resignation or submissiveness, like when it's like really extreme. So like the when a sign is very extreme, that's the lower expression of the sign. And the lower expression of Pisces is focused on escapism and is too submissive and too like resigned and like no sense of making things a certain way. Like, you know, Virgo is kind of very discerning and perfectionistic and practical. And the higher expression of Pisces has that, you know, some of that discerning quality to it as well. But okay, so when it comes to the actual like money aspect of it, as opposed to like needing to share your stuff or like getting things that you wanted, it's possible that like even if your parents like tried to like give you stuff that you wanted and, you know, make sure that you had things that you liked, that they had their own financial stress. And even if they didn't talk to you about it, that energy had an impact on you, especially as a second house Pisces person. Pisces is very, very, very absorbent. Pisces is a sponge. So anything that happened in your environment is going to like be part of your experience of it until you like release it and absorb something new. So it's possible that that's part of it. And it's also possible that you just absorbed it from the collective or from other people in your life. So anywhere Pisces is in your chart, be careful what you're absorbing because you're going to absorb a lot of stuff. And, you know, you kind of like one of the little pieces of wisdom about Taurus and the second house is that anything that we consume kind of becomes part of who we are. Like the food that we eat literally becomes our bodies. And the media that we expose ourselves to, the types of interactions that we have with other people, the energy in our environment, all of these things have a really profound impact on who we are. Like I said earlier, there's no true separation between the inner and outer. My body is made up of food, and I turn that food into energy to move around and talk to you. And like my beliefs that I have all been influenced by the different experiences I've had and ideas that I've heard throughout my life. And my actual spirit is source energy and came from source and returns to source and is never separate from source. And you know, every single thing about us essentially, like we have this sort of illusion that we're separate from everything, but it's really all just one thing. So like Pisces is more aware of this than any other sign. That's kind of the foundation of Pisces, that oneness. So I'm not quite sure why I went on that tangent just now, but
Okay.
does it help though?
Yeah, it definitely does. And then as you were describing it at first, I was like, okay, you know, okay. And then it got further and I was like, yeah, I totally remember all of a sudden, like all the stuff that happened that I just tried to really like put off that was happening. Cause like I lived with my grandparents for a while, but they were always like, yeah, always about that kind of stuff, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I don't know, like maybe that had something to do with it.
And if you start using this process that I'm talking about, I don't know if you saw the article, but if you start doing this, you don't really need to analyze it and figure it out. Like whatever is,
That's good.
whatever your resistances are, whatever your mental blocks, whatever your limiting beliefs, they're going to just naturally come up. So so if you focus on that first step and the second step too, really, and just focus on what it would feel like to have the kind of abundance that you want to have, and just really try to like attune your energy to that energy as much as you possibly can, you will find that things just naturally come up and you can address them when they do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jennifer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you. Actually, I'm new to this too. I literally just hopped in. I saw your post while you were in the middle of this, and I popped on.
Okay. Welcome.
I'm a Leo. Thank you. I'm a Leo rising, so I have a Virgo second house, and it's empty, but it's right opposite Jupiter, sitting in my 8th in Pisces. So it was good you went on about that. I'm having a hard time staying grounded these days for many reasons. Neptune's conjunct my Pluto or my Jupiter right now, which is not a fun place to be. Not for me anyway. And I just came out of the Jupiter sextile Jupiter with, in my 6th house, which I've been calling it my house of drudgery, because with Jupiter in your 8th and other people's money, I literally had 3 deaths in my family in the last 11 months, including my father and my grandmother, which of course entitled some inheritance, and my ex-husband committed suicide in July and left us behind, and I had to go fund me. So there's been a lot of money, but it's come through a lot of pain. And then with Neptune sitting on top of Jupiter there, and this fluid existence, and who am I, where am I in the universe, because it kind of brings that flavor to it in a little way. It's really hard to navigate that. And I've been trying to nail down Virgo-related topics of second house issues, mostly self-esteem, because the money is rolling in. But it's hard to take that all on board in how you had to get it. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. So it sounds like part of you is feeling a little bit of survivor's guilt, maybe. Like, is it really okay for me to not only get money through this suffering, but also to just be here and be okay, even though these other people didn't get to stay here and be okay too?
Yeah, and in the terms of my grandmother, it was like Uranus is in Scorpio on the bottom of my chart too, the 4th house. So there were some things there with my father passing that were cathartic a little bit. I don't know. We kind of made our peace at the end, but it all kind of ties together in a way. But with my grandmother passing, I didn't get to say goodbye because of COVID. I didn't get to go to the funeral. It was in Illinois, and I live in New York City. There's some of that there, and with my ex-husband, it's definitely survivor's anger. He left me with an autistic child by myself, and so I refer back to the woman who was talking before about being by herself and being on her own and being able to get money to take care of or pay for things you need. It's hard not to identify with that because it's kind of the way my life is, especially now. We always come back to the square where it's me kind of taking care of business. So I'm just curious how that 8th house opposition, in terms of when you're talking about second house values and self-esteem, how you kind of navigate through that, because eventually I have to let people back in my life, whether I have to get over the survivor's guilt hump or whatever it might be. It's hard to trust, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's difficult.
Definitely. So while you are in the grieving process, I think it's important to let your body lead that, and to know that it's a very physical experience, and to just kind of let it take its course, and just honor and support the process. And Virgo in the 2nd house is going to be really organized about finances, going to be really organized about all your stuff, and you can lean into that. Declutter your whole house. That's one of the most important ways that Virgo balances out Pisces, is by managing who and what are in the energetic sphere that impacts you. So go through your stuff, do the thing where you pick it up and sparks joy.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I cleaned out my house once and I'm ready to do it again. And I am very meticulous with finances. My child has a special needs trust. You bet. That's me down to the core. And I'm about ready to, it's funny, I was just texting somebody before this who stood me up this weekend as being a pain in the rear end. And so I'm in the middle of kind of cleaning that up too, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't have time for this anymore, but I'm trying to do it, in a more spiritual and humane kind of way, instead of just saying, you're a jerk, just saying like, this isn't working, good luck to you, whatever. But it's a lot to try to overcome that. And I felt like, am I going to be, I guess my question is, am I going to be sitting with this as long as Neptune's on top of Jupiter, or is this part of the fact that I have a pile up in the 6th house? Because it's heavy.
No.
I found out the day of my second ex-husband, my son's father's birthday, that my first ex-husband actually died. So that's 4 deaths in 11 months. And I'm kind of feeling like a piñata, and I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. So transits don't necessarily have the same impact on you the entire time. If you can process what's there to that it's teaching you, you can, things can feel a lot lighter, a lot earlier. I'm in the middle of a 4-year transit with Chiron on my Venus, Sun, and Mars. And let me tell you, it was excruciating for a while, but I did the healing work. And now, even though I'm like halfway through it, it's really not bothering me at all anymore because I already did the work. So you don't have to wait for the transit to end necessarily. And the same thing with retrogrades. If I do the work early, same thing with then I don't feel it the whole time. The same thing with new moon, or with like full moons and new moons. I can feel it coming on a few days in advance, and sometimes I can do the work that I need to do, and then the actual day of, it's all right. Eclipses, like, not so much though I take a day off when there's an eclipse. But anyways, so basically what I would say is, I think it might be a good idea to talk to an actual like grief counselor. Like, you've been through a lot and you have a lot on your plate, and it is going to take some time to just process all of this. And like an actual therapist might be a nice investment for you to take care of yourself and be there for the people that you care about, and move forward.
Okay, thanks. I have one. It's, I'm doing everything that I can. It's just, it's like you said, you have to do the work, and sometimes you just have the patience.
Yeah. And slow is fast when it comes to processing. Slow is fast.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else right now? Okay, I'm going to take a turn. So I have, like I was saying earlier, this part of me, Renee, who, so I've been through some extremely stressful financial trauma in my life. Like, I was working in a field related to real estate during that period of time when the secondary lending market crashed and nobody was buying houses, nobody could get loans. And it was a lot worse than it looked on paper, like, as somebody who worked in the industry at the time. And I also had like before it got really bad, when it was just starting to get bad, I had a car accident, and that kind of like screwed things up as part of that too. So anyways, I had this period of time where like I used to think it was kind of fun to like balance my checkbook, and I'm old enough that online banking wasn't a thing yet, and you actually like had to balance your checkbook. And I used to actually enjoy doing budgets and balancing my checkbook and stuff like that, and just taking care of my finances. And then I went through this period of time with that like real estate crash in like around 2007, 2008. Where I was upside down. That means I owe more money than what I could sell it for. Upside down on a fixer-upper house that like needed a roof, and was in kind of a really unpleasant neighborhood, and it was very stressful to live there, and I wasn't making enough money to make the payments, and like I wasn't making enough money for like a lot of the things that I needed in my life. And there's this part of me, Renee, that was carrying a burden from that financial financially traumatic situation. And I met different parts of her, because it's kind of interesting how it all came out. So I have had an actual financial phobia. Like, even if I could afford to pay my bills, I was afraid to even look at them. I would put off getting the mail. When I got the mail, I would like stick it in a pile and like not want to look at it. I was afraid to like look at how much money was in my bank account. And this was when I was making enough money. Like one time my electricity got disconnected when I had plenty of money to pay it, just because I like forgot to pay the bill for 6 months, because this part of me, Renee, was carrying this financial trauma energy in my system. And when I talked to her, I found 4 different main parts. So one part, Denver, was like, you're completely worthless if you don't pay your bills. You need to pay them on time. You need to get caught up on your student loans. You need to like all of the like criticism, my inner critic about finances. You are completely worthless if you cannot like pay your bills. You should be saving money. You should be investing money. So this was a voice that was going on in my head. And then there was another part, Fantasia, who seemed like she wasn't even related at all, because she never talked about money. What she would do is get me interested in, here's this theory about personality types. Ooh, here's this interesting scientific article. And like always taking my attention to other things that were interesting and stimulating and would just keep me occupied, so I didn't have to think about money. And then Jan was the part of me that would literally just shut me down when I would try to like actually sit down and like manage my finances. So basically it's freeze mode. Feels very heavy. Your brain slows down. Basically when you get stressed out, you go into fight or flight, or like fawn, where you're like a people pleaser is another thing that can happen. But when it goes beyond the level of stress where you think that there's any reasonable thing that you can possibly do, you're not in fight or flight anymore. You're in freeze. And it's like a possum playing dead. You're like, your whole nervous system just powers down. And the idea is to conserve energy and to not have to experience this extreme stress so strongly. So Jan was a part of me that would just send me into like freeze mode whenever I tried to do things with my finances. And I'm like, all right, you guys, like why are you doing these things though? Oh, well, we need to keep Mary locked up tight. Who's Mary? Well, Mary is a part of me that would literally just want to die related to financial stuff. Like just felt completely hopeless, completely helpless. And anytime there was like severe financial stress, just literally wanted to die. And I didn't know that part of me was there. And I talked to all of them. And at the end of the day, Mary just wanted to paint when she didn't have to worry about being completely worthless and unloved if I wasn't financially successful. And Denver was willing to relax if I, promised that like this isn't going to be an issue anymore. And I can take care of these things. I don't need you to push for it. And, Fantasia and Jan didn't need to do what they were doing anymore once Mary wasn't a threat. Like, because if Mary takes over, now the whole system is in grave danger, right? Because I think most people don't realize that there are parts of them that want to die because it's usually like very, very unconscious. And this is what we would call an exile. So basically, I needed to do a lot of unburdening related to, you know, a history of financially traumatic situations. And like life has been a lot freer and a lot more comfortable since then. And it didn't happen all at once. Like it's kind of happened in little chunks here and there because it was a lot all at once, you know? So like I said, sometimes slow is fast, but now I'm in a position where like I pretty much have zero financial anxiety at all at this point anymore. Like every now and then something might come up, but it's not usually, and it's like not that strong when it does, and it's pretty easy to address when it does happen. But you know, I've had plenty of other parts that I've talked to about this kind of thing too, and now I'm just over here, you know, bringing in this like financial abundance energy. I remember one day I was like just really, really feeling it and really, really loving it. And I walked into a bank to just get something notarized. And the bank manager started giving me this hard sell about moving my investment accounts to his portfolio. And I have never had anybody assume in my life that I like had a bunch of money invested anywhere. So it was just kind of interesting to see how the world responded to me differently when I was walking around with this energy in my energy field compared to how it would usually do that. So yeah, life is good. So I think we're about ready to wrap things up here unless there's anybody else who has anything else. I have a question for the group though. I'm curious do you think you would benefit from doing something like this regularly? I guess is the first question. Like, would you have any interest in that? All right, I'm seeing some affirmative. Yeah, okay, cool. So I've been trying to part of me has been really focused on trying to figure out how I might structure something like that. Like if I were to start offering that as a professional service. And one of the things that came to mind is I could like do like one-to-one like packages with people, because with this kind of thing, if you like just do a session, you know, it's like trying to lose weight by eating one healthy meal, you know, like it kind of does like, you know, take a little bit of regular focus in order to really see results. So I was thinking like I could do like one-to-one packages. I was thinking I could do like a monthly membership with a community and do like group sessions like this one, where there's also like a dedicated space for the community to interact, because the group energy is such a powerful thing. And then it would be like a closed group, so that you know, the only people who have access to any of the content that's coming out of that would be people who are in the group with us. So more privacy, essentially. And then another thought I had is like, instead of like a monthly membership thing, I could do like a package where like, you know, again, like 3 months or something like that, where people are, you know, really seeing some changes in their lives. Because like, man, wouldn't that be so exciting if like somebody was like, hey, like I did this 10th house thing and now I've got this like career that I love, or like I did this second house thing and like, man, my money like tripled in 3 months, or, you know, it'd be awesome to have results like that and see those experiences unfold. So anyways, I'm kind of just like in this position where like I can do this or not do this, just depending on what the group wants and needs. And I would just love to hear what other people want or need, or any concerns that might come up about this. And also whether you care about focusing on a specific house or think it would be a good idea to let's just do them all. They're all connected anyway, right? So you can share here, or you can send me a message or an email, whatever you'd like to do. I just need feedback. So, because this part of me that's like, I need to figure out like how to structure this. I'm like, you know, it's all right. Let's just see what people want before we try to figure it out for them, you know? So anyways, yeah, shoot me a message or send me an email. I would love to hear how I can support you. That would be awesome. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad that you came, and I'm so glad for all of the participation and sharing. That makes me very happy, and this is a very fulfilling experience for me. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.